Imagine waking up with no roof over your head, no clocks, no grocery stores, and no sense of tomorrow, only the cold earth beneath your body and the urgent need to survive another day. This was the daily reality for our Paleolithic ancestors. To them, each sunrise wasn't a promise of leisure, it was a challenge issued by nature itself. Find food, stay warm, protect your kin, or perish. While men typically ventured out on hunts, women and children were no less vital to the survival equation. Armed with spears, sharpened stones, and eventually they relied not just on brute strength, but on deep understanding of animal behavior. Their stone tools were carefully crafted through a process called knapping, where flint or obsidian was chipped to form razor-sharp edges. Children learned by doing, by watching their parents, mimicking their actions, and being corrected through trial and error. Play wasn't separate from education. It was education, and language, while not preserved archaeologically, likely played a huge role in that transmission. This understanding guided migrations, hunting patterns, and even spiritual beliefs. Burial sites, dating back tens of thousands of years, show signs of deliberate placement. Grave goods, infection was common. Wild animals posed constant threats, and weather could turn deadly without warning. In a world where predators prowled and fire needed tending, deep rest was rare. But even so, in those hours of darkness, under a sky brimming with stars, the seeds of imagination were planted. The same minds that chipped stone and tracked deer also wondered why the moon changed shape, why fire danced, and what dreams meant. But despite this, early humans thrived, not because they were the strongest, but because they adapted. It was a full-spectrum existence of survival, innovation, and connection to the natural world. They lived closer to the edge than we do, but also perhaps closer to each other. Every day brought challenge. Every success, no matter how small, was hard-won. They cooperated. They learned not only from their own mistakes, but from one another's, and pigment, who suggesting an awareness of death, and perhaps an early form of religion or respect for the afterlife. Our ancestors used a complex system of sounds, gestures, and expressions to communicate, plan, and bond. The evolution of language was perhaps the greatest leap forward in our species' ability to cooperate and imagine. Their lives were short, but their impact was long. They didn't have history books, but they made history one stone, one fire, one day at a time. These tools weren't just practical, they were innovative. Scrapers for hidework, awls for puncturing, hand axes for butchering, all designed with specific tasks in mind. The knowledge of tool-making passed down generations, forming a silent but enduring curriculum. They tracked footprints, listened for calls, and moved in silence. A successful hunt could feed the group for days. A failed one meant tighter belts and longer walks. Around the fire, they would eat, rest, and often share stories. Storytelling wasn't just entertainment. It was how knowledge survived, how the lessons of a failed hunt, the memory of a flood, or the danger of a certain snake could be passed down long after the original event had faded. These stories helped create identity, continuity, and culture, but even the meat wasn't the only gain. Bones, sinew, and hides were just as valuable, turned into tools, thread, clothing, and shelter. Food needed to be prepared, roasted over the fire, dried for storage, or chewed immediately. Water was collected from nearby streams or rivers. Hides were stretched and scraped to become clothing or shelter components. Bones were carved into needles, fishhooks, or decorative items. The entire day was filled with utility, but also moments of reflection and ritual. They gathered edible plants, roots, fruits, and nuts, and they knew the landscape intimately, what could heal, what could kill, and what would simply taste awful. This knowledge wasn't written down, It was learned by observation, repetition, and consequence. A typical day in the life of a caveman was a balancing act of instinct, knowledge, and community, played out in one of the harshest classrooms on Earth. Mornings didn't begin with alarms. They began with the bite of cold air, the crackle of dying embers, and the rustle of sleeping bodies stirring in the half-dark. Prehistoric humans, often huddled in caves or makeshift shelters of hide and wood, woke with the sun. Their first task, rekindle the fire. Fire was everything: warmth, light, protection, and a gateway to cooked food, which made digestion easier and nutrition more accessible. Losing fire meant risking everything. Once the fire was fed, attention turned to food. For a caveman, eating was never guaranteed. It required strategy and effort. Hunting was a high-stakes game. Prehistoric hunters faced wild boars, reindeer, even mammoths, depending on their region and era. Cavemen weren't just brutes chasing after beasts. They were skilled technologists of their time. Daily life also included child-rearing and teaching, though these weren't separate activities. As the sun climbed and then descended, tasks shifted. Cavemen weren't mindless. They were deeply observant. They recognized patterns in the stars, changes in animal behavior, and the rhythms of the seasons. As night fell, the group would gather once more. Physical dangers were ever present. A broken bone could mean death. Sleep came in cycles: light, interrupted, and alert. A day in the life of a caveman wasn't a series of isolated events, and through it all, they were laying the groundwork for everything we now take for granted, from tools to teamwork, from language to legacy.